We have a panel of five, very eminent speakers here with us today. And they're going to be speaking on the changing Asian domain landscape. Our new TLDs making a dent in the industry. So, the chairs are set up back there. I'm going to begin by introducing you to your moderator, Mr. Edmon Chung, the CEO of DotAsia Organization. He also heads the Secretariat for the Asia Pacific Regional Internet Governance Forum. Edmon is an inventor of patents underlying technologies for internationalized domain names, IDNs, and email addresses on the internet. Edmon has served on many global IDN-related committees, including technical and policy groups that made it possible for the introduction of multilingual domain names and email addresses on the internet. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Edmon, along with the rest of your speakers.
Bit of time before I introduce the panel. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for having me here. Always very excited to talk about domain names, and very humbled by the experience on the IDNs, and I'll talk a little bit about that too. The earlier speaker, I think, mentioned one thing, that .com is still the most important, I guess, for SMEs. I hope if myself and my colleagues on the panel does it right, I hope we can convince you that new gTLDs are important for your business. It's relevant for your business as well. Of course, we have a saying that, we drink our own Kool-Aid, or I'm sure there's an Indian expression that says the same thing. We believe, of course, in new gTLDs and their relevance. We believe it creates, it generates more choice, consumer choice. It creates trust. It has an opportunity to create trust, and most important of all, it supports innovation. I think that's really what it is about, and it is the future. We already are living in it. This is going to be a very different landscape on the internet. Another thing that an earlier speaker, I think in the early afternoon, mentioned about is its relevance with SEO. I think there was a question whether domain names are still relevant for SEO. I tend to kind of disagree with the answer then. I believe that domain names are still very relevant for SEO, and hopefully I can convince you in my discussion right here. And the first thing you will notice in this .future is that these are words. These are keywords. And this is a couple of years ago, we're standing at about 200 top-level domains in total. We're looking at almost 2,000 top-level domains to be introduced in the next year or so. And a good few hundred is already introduced. And one thing that, before we talk about what the future might bring, it's interesting to take a little look back at the history. This is Mr. John Postel. He was the maintainer of the domain name system for a long time. Before ICANN, I think the gentleman earlier explained what ICANN does. Before it was this person operated ICANN, and the domain name, one very interesting story about the domain name system is that when it was first introduced, here's how people envisioned it, the engineers envisioned it. It's about country code top-level domains, and they imagined the internet organized in countries, different nations. And .com was actually an afterthought. And that's why, at that time, .com, .net, .org were just given to one small California company to say, go crazy on it. Nobody's going to register .com. Of course, history tells us, and over 100 million .com names registered after, that's not true. Everyone loves .com. So, when we think about UTLDs, I think that is a perspective we need to think about as well. And domain names have grown over the years. The essence of a domain name has grown really from just a engineering tool. When it was first introduced, it was a navigational tool on the internet. It was more human-friendly than IP addresses. Then it grew in the mid-90s. It became a brand value. A lot of brands start to vie for their own domain name, and it created vanity value. A lot of high-priced domain names were bought and sold. And into the 2000s, we started to develop what is called domain investment value and search engine optimization value. And those are some of the value that is still driving the domain name industry today. And why I say that is, again, going back to the question of whether domain still is relevant, the gentleman mentioned that domain keyword terms change over time. Yes, 15% of keywords are new, search terms are new. But don't forget, there's the flip side too, 85%. That means 85% remains. And that's why it's still relevant. The other thing, the reason why it's relevant is also because of what is called the long tail value. And so if you look at a domain, a portfolio of domain names, a lot of companies no longer just maintain one particular domain name. And a long tail value is really the kind of thing that you want to take a look at. The internet allows us to really harvest what is called the long tail value. Of course, the main site, your brand name, the main website is going to get most of the traffic, maybe 90% or upwards of the traffic. But what a portfolio of domain names really bring you, and why SEO plays an important role, is that there's a long tail effect. There's a long tail effect to bring in more traffic, and that's what a portfolio of domain actually brings you. And this is reflective of our experience at DotAsia as well. We're seeing a continuously growing DotAsia presence. We're up to about 300 million indexed entries at Google right now, and that speaks to a lot of the cases. It speaks to the value that people place on DotAsia and in relation with its search engine optimization value. The other thing you want to think about is in marketing we always talk about location, 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 and in the physical world we have part of the reason why chain stores are so valuable is because they draw in traffic from different physical locations. And in the virtual world, in the cyber world, domain names play that role. And domain names help you build a larger footprint on the internet for Google, for other search engines, because they drive traffic from around the internet. And each particular domain drives additional traffic for you to your main website. And that's what I mean by a portfolio of domain names. And this is the kind of value that it's not only appreciated by the industry, people taking notice. That is why Amazon, Google, and Microsoft actually applied for so many top-level domains. If Google didn't think it was relevant, they wouldn't have applied for over 100 new top-level domains. Google themselves applied for 100 top-level domains. Amazon, the other big giant on the internet, applied for over 70 new top-level domains. And among them, they have 20 top-level domains that they are in contention with. Both of them want .search, both of them want .books, both of them want .music, .movie. And I think that tells you something about the value. And the other thing that's very interesting is to see the brands start to come in. You're going to see .apple, .ibm, and all of this is also interesting in a geographic perspective. If you look at the official numbers from ICANN, you can see that there's only about 15% that is coming from Asia. And that seems to represent a very small number. But if it's adjusted with some of the North American companies that utilize a European entity to apply for new top-level domains, you see that even more biased distribution. In fact, North America is occupying almost 70%, with Europe and Asia at par at about 15% each. So Asia is really, waking up to this industry as well, alongside Europe. And if you look at, zoom in a little bit into Asia, you would see that if you add Hong Kong, China, Taiwan together, and in terms of the Greater China area, it occupies the most top-level domains applied for at above 80 applications. Next coming in is Japan with about 70 applications, driven a lot by brands from Japan. And India is a little bit further behind with about 20 applications. What is missing in action is also interesting. Korea only 5, Taiwan only 4. They're very strong economically, but that's interesting. And this particular distribution is also interesting on the more micro level in DotAsia registrations. What we are seeing is kind of a reflection of that too. In the last 2 years, the top 2 economies for DotAsia registration actually came from Japan and China, and further down India and Southeast Asia. However, what is very interesting for us to also see from DotAsia is that even though Japan and China occupies a huge part of the registrations, India and Southeast Asia is actually most interested in adopting DotAsia. I guess you can see it in the wild. We can see different DotAsia domain names being deployed in billboard ads, and that's in different conferences, different advertisements, and that's really what I think drives the value as well. And with that, we look at kind of a more macro economic situation in Asia. One of the underlying, I guess, themes of the coming year in 2015 is about the Asia market integration. You're going to hear this again and again, I guess, in the coming year, because this is going to be the year that the ASEAN economic community will be integrated into one single market. So it means a kind of free trade zone in the Southeast Asia and Asia region. And I think this is going to be a very important part of thinking about the industry and thinking about the development of where registrations are coming from. Again, a little bit about the overall market development. I think what is understood, Asia is already the largest internet marketplace by far. And however, the internet penetration, the story continues. Internet penetration is still at only about 30%. In India, about 20%. So there's a huge amount of growth potential. I should update this a little bit after the presentation from the last speaker. So from my information, it was 8 million SMEs with only about 500,000 websites. But actually, so with the updated numbers, it's still, same story is still the same. There's a huge amount of potential. 10 million SMEs with only about 1 million having a website. So there's a huge opportunity there, and we're seeing that too. For DotAsia, in terms of the adoption, we can see that the SMEs are adopting DotAsia domain names. And another thing, an important thing about small businesses is that they speak local language. So I think another important thing about the new gTLD program is about internationalized domain names. And people think about internationalized domain names, and many people say people don't type them in. However, if you think about the search engine value of domain names, you would understand that users search in their native language. I'm sure people in China and Japan, other places, they search in their native language, and that's why it's relevant. The other thing that is driving SEO, as many have mentioned, is social media. And in social media, again, the local language is predominant. One of the interesting things that we are seeing in DotAsia is, for example, the campaign by the Singapore Development Bank, DBS.Asia. They utilize DBS.Asia, and if you check it out, type in www.dbs.asia, it brings you directly to the Facebook page. And this is part of how people are utilizing new generic top-level domains as well. And another important thing is about mobile. I think a lot of people have talked about it. What I want to point out is also that Asia is going to occupy almost 40% of the B2C sales from e-commerce in the coming 2 years. And not only that, Asians are among the most willing to spend online. Closer to 40% express that they're willing to spend money online, especially through mobile payment. So this is a very interesting development, and we're seeing that in DotAsia registrations as well. And one of the telltale one is that URL shorteners People starting to use .asia names for URL shorteners, and I think is very important. Another thing about internationalized domain names, well, maybe people are not typing in IDNs just yet, but when they switch to voice activation, I hardly think that people will speak to their phone in English too much. I mean, especially in China and Japan. They're going to speak in their own native language, and IDNs is going to be more relevant. So looking at the actual numbers, we're up to about 3 million domain names registered in the new gTLDs, and a recent survey is saying that over 30% of the growth from new registrations are coming from new gTLDs. So it's about 30% for old gTLDs, about 30% new gTLDs, and about 30% in country code top-level domains, which we're seeing. And I think ultimately what is most important is how the new gTLD is perceived in the marketplace and how the new gTLD registries understands the marketplace. And at DotAsia, this is one of the things that we've done a lot. We've talked about SEO, we've talked about small, medium-sized businesses. Another exciting thing is understanding the market loves entertainment. We've always worked with celebrities in the region, and that has driven the adoption of DotAsia as well. And of course, we continue to attend these type of meetings to generate awareness about DotAsia. We continue to support the industry around Asia and the development of the Asia Internet community. And I'm flipping through a little bit because I'm running out of time, but I'll come back to it when I can come back to it when we talk about it. Another interesting thing I wanted to point out is that about new gTLDs, as we look into the future of Internet of Things, I think a very important development or a very exciting potential for new gTLDs could be an Internet of Names for the Internet of Things. Think about it. I guess you don't want to be searching for your refrigerator on Google, especially after the Snowden revelations. So I think these are the things that are driving the domain name business. And one last item that I want to bring out is that with all the 3 million registered domain names now in new gTLDs and 30% growth rate, that 30% market share of growth that we're thinking about, the most exciting new gTLDs are yet to be launched. These are the most sought after top-level domains: .app, .inc, .blog, .book. These are yet to be launched. So .shop, .movie, and I think this just opens up a very exciting new chapter in the domain business. And of course, another one that DotAsia is supporting is .web in Chinese, and I can come back to that a little bit more. And to finish off, with all this marketing and all this talk about the market, I want to make sure that everyone knows that DotAsia Organization is actually a not-for-profit organization, and all the domain names that come into DotAsia supports the development and adoption of internet around Asia. These are just some of the projects that we support: a youth volunteer program, Go.Asia, which is a donation platform. We work with a lot of different organizations and NGOs around Asia to support them. This is one interesting that I want to highlight. We're actually supporting the Asian Film Awards as well. So all this, it's kind of like the Oscars for Asia. And of course, these are guys that you probably know much better than I do. And the voting of which goes through a .asia domain. We mentioned about the Asia Pacific Regional Internet Forum, and we also support a number of different events. So finally, just one final point. When we talk about the future, I'd like to bring up this particular slide. In 1954, this is a picture taken in 1954 that talked about, that is actually the brightest minds in computer science came together to think about, to create this thing. And this thing that you see in this picture is what the computer scientists in 1954 thought in 50 years' time from then, what your home computer would look like. Home computer. I don't know what that steering wheel is for, but, So 2004, this is what your home computer looked like in 2004. So when we talk about the future, I think it's very important to know that all the experts around the world will probably be wrong, but still, we'd like to look into the future. And about domain names, I think, just to end with a couple of sentences, I think the future is not going to be just about the volume. It's going to be about the value that top-level domains can create for businesses and for end customers. And it's also going to be about strategic domain value, especially as a portfolio of domain names. No longer are we in an era where companies only maintain one single domain. We're talking about a portfolio of domain and how that is becoming a strategic domain value. And ultimately, domain names are about identities that connect with people. And I think that eventually is still going to be the thing that will drive the value of the DNS. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edmon. I think we have some time for one or two questions specifically for you. So if we open up the floor to one quick question, maybe two, before we introduce the rest of the panelists. Any?
Nope.
Okay, I've got one right there. Can we get a mic right here in the third row, please?
TLDs are the most popular than the gTLDs, but still the other TLDs are priced higher than the TLDs. Why is that so? I mean, they should be kept, prices should be kept low than .com and .net, but the prices are higher than these domains.
That's a very good question. I think we can ask the panelists as well. But on that specific question, one of the things I mentioned is about consumer choice and value and competition. So I think there are actually, if you look at all the new gTLDs, there are ones that are priced very low, in fact close to free, and there are ones that are priced higher. So you're seeing a bigger spectrum. Rather than saying, hey, all the new gTLDs are coming in more and more expensive, I think the better way to think about it is that it comes in a spectrum. And this is the first year of the launch. So you're really seeing this is how I guess the industry thinks about it. I probably ask the same question to my colleagues later. But the way I see it is that the registries think that the earlier adopters might want to go for the more premium names, the better names, so it's priced a little bit higher at the beginning. And you would, I think, see a little bit of a discount as we roll out, as the new registrations come in. However, the other thing that really driving that price is a price that ICANN is charging. ICANN charges over about $200,000 for an application of new gTLDs. That's very different from before. That's a higher price than before, and I think that's part of the reason why it's showing as well.